Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to AWS Cloud Demos. My name is Murli, and in today's demo, we will look into CodePipeline. We will look into orchestrating different things like CodeCommit, CodeBuild, and CodeDeploy, and we will deploy our Docker images into the ECS EC2. Okay, so for this, I will be starting off with creating our infrastructure. I will start creating the ECS cluster with EC2. We are not looking into Fargate, we are looking into EC2 this time. So we will orchestrate all these services and put it into the code pipeline today. Okay, so before we move on, okay, I would like to request everybody, please, whoever is watching my videos, please do subscribe my channel. And I can see 97% of my viewers are not subscribing to my channel, they are just viewing and leaving the channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, that gives me a lot of motivation to make these videos. And I hope please also do like my channel if you guys really like my videos. If you don't, please do suggest what I can improve, and you can just put it in the comment section down below so that I can cover those topics as well. Okay, so today let's go and find out how we can orchestrate all these services into the code pipeline. Okay, so for that I have already created my AWS snippets, so you can go ahead and see the core infrastructure, how you can create it. I have used a CloudFormation template. We will use a CloudFormation template to create our resources just on the fly, so you do not have to go through all that in the console. Okay, so we will just do it by deploying the CloudFormation template stack. Okay, and also we will create the IAM roles. I will show you guys in some time how we can create that. Okay, so go ahead and open up your console, and you should be able to see the console. And so we will start off with creating the code commit. So let's go to code commit, or simply type in the search box here code commit. And once you're in the code commit, let's go ahead and create the repository on the right side. Let's create it and let's name it AWS ECS Docker. Let's copy the same name here in the description, and let's go ahead and create the repository. So now that you have created the repository, so you will have the clone URL, so you should be able to clone this URL in your local machine. So first step is to go to IAM console. So let me go to the IAM. So let me type IAM here and open up in a new tab. So as you can see, you are now in the IAM. So if you go to users, right, so I have created a user called Bobby, so you will be able to create a user similar to what I've created. And if you click on that user, you should be able to see this. So make sure you attach these permissions to this particular user, okay, who has access to ECS full access, CodeCommit full access, and CodeCommit power user. So make sure you have all these access in your for your user. Okay, so how do you add these permissions to your user? So when you create the user, in the user screen, right click on the add permission, click on the add permissions here, and click on the attach policies, and you can type code commit something like this. Because I've already attached, I cannot see this here, so make sure you attach and select the permission that you wanted and click on next. Okay, so you should be able to do it on yourself. In my case, I've already done it. As you can see, I've already attached these permissions, so make sure you attach these as well. Okay, so once you're done with these permissions, click on the security credentials, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you should be able to see that my https git credentials has been already generated. Okay, so make sure you copy these credentials and put it in your AWS CLI. Okay, I'm now logged in. So let's go back to the code commit here and open up my code commit repository. This is my repository. This is similar to the GitHub, right? So we have our code commit is nothing but similar to the GitHub where we create the repository. So this is our repository. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to I've already set up my credentials. I already have these prerequisites, so all that I can do now is clone this repository. Okay, and now let me clone this repository to my local. Okay, let me go to the terminal. So I'm in my terminal, so let me start opening up into sites. So I have a bunch of projects here. I'm gonna do a git clone over here. Alright, so your repository seems to be empty right now because there is nothing over here and there is no files. Okay, what I'm going to do now, simply close this notification, and paste some contents over here, so which I already have somewhere in my other repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste some of the files over here. Okay, so just give me a second. Alright, so what I'm going to do is open up my folder. Okay, it's right here, AWS Docker, ECS Docker, and paste it. Okay, so I have bunch of files. I would like to push my files to the CodeCommit, just like any GitHub repository. So whoever is doing this should have a minimum understanding of GitHub, like pulling your code and making some commits. You should have that knowledge before doing this demo. Okay, so I have pasted some files over here, and let me do a git status here. Let me cd to my repository, which is AWS ECS Docker. Okay, and so you have a bunch of files here, which is Docker file. So I will go through each of the file, okay, in a second, which is, for example, let's say Docker file, right? So let me open up in the code editor. So yeah, so I have opened in my code editor. So let's say this is our Docker file where I'm trying to create a where I'm going to create a container where this is my work directory, and this is the platform that I'm using. Basically, if you are not using Apple M1 or M2 chips, so you don't need this. So for my case, I'm using the Apple M1, so that's why I need to put this, otherwise my Docker build will fail. Okay, it's not going to build the images. So for that reason, I had to place this one. If in your case, you might not need to do this. Okay, so this is my work directory, and this is where I'm copying my directory contents from here to container app. Okay, and I'm trying to do the uninstall and run the server and expose the port 3000. So basically my application is running on the port 3000. Okay, so that's what we are doing in the Docker file, and that's simple it is. Okay, I will talk about build spec file in some time. Okay, so we will talk about this a bit later. So let's push this code for now, and in my index.js I have literally simple code, like it's a simple Express app where you have welcome to Express app. So it's pretty simple. Alright, so there is nothing much going on here, but it's a simple Node.js app, and that's it. So let me go to the terminal and just do git status. I know I've already done it. Okay, so git add dot, so which will add the files into my staging, and now let's commit these files. Okay, some update add AWS Docker files, and now let's push the code. Okay, so give it a second. So now that we have pushed our code, go back to the CodeCommit and go to repositories. So this is our repository we have just now created and modified just now. Click on that, and you can see now we can see all our files are being pushed into the AWS ECS Docker, right? So you can see our Docker file is being pushed over here, as you can see, and also we have pushed everything over here. Okay, so now that we are ready with our repository, so we are pushed the code into CodeCommit. So what we are going to do is we will be using this particular repository into our code build, so that we will be able to run the build and push our image to the AWS ECR. So what is ECR? If I go to in the search box, let's type ECR. So this is our ECR, which is nothing but Elastic Container Registry, where we will be pushing our Docker images to this registry. Okay, so let's create a repository. So go to Amazon ECR, get started, click on and now make sure you want to create, if you want to create private, public, it's totally up to you. I'm going to create private, and now let me name this as AWS ECS Docker. Okay, so this is my Docker repository, and now I don't want to scan on push, I don't want any encryption right now, so I'm happy with this, and click on create repository. So now that you have created your repository, okay, so what we will be doing now is copy this repository. You have no images right here, right? So what we will do is we will go to let's go to CodeCommit. Let's make sure our build spec is already available. I know it is already available. So make sure your account ID is replaced with the ECR URL. Okay, so I will show you how you can do it in a meantime. So let me go to ECR, open that in the new tab, click on this, or go to repository, copy this. So you can see the URI here, right? So just copy that URI, which is your ECR registry URI. So go back to the code commit and click on edit, and in here just come here and just make sure you have your account ID and then ECR. Okay, so once you are done, and then also make sure you have your default region, which my default region is US East 1. Make sure you have your region correctly specified over here. Okay, make sure your region is correct, otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, okay, that's it. And now I'm going to push it, code commit message, update build spec YAML file, commit. So basically what build spec will do is, when you are creating a code build, right, so this build spec will be used and it will follow all these instructions, where I'm going to use the runtime of Node.js. I'm using a commands to set up my Docker instance, and I'm using the pre-build, which I'm getting the login credentials from the ECR, and this is my repository URL, and I'm gonna use my commit hash for the image tag. And then in the build stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to echo the building the Docker image, and then I'm going to build the Docker image and tag it. Okay, so once it is ready after the build, what I'm going to do, I'm going to push that to my ECR registry, and then we will make sure our pipeline. So for the pipeline, we will be printing this message to the we will print this object to the image definitions.json. So this will be used for deployment later. Okay, so we will look into that later. So the build spec is basically utilized by CodeBuild to make sure that we will be a build step. It will follow these instructions and build the Docker image and push it to the ECR. So let's see how we're going to do it. So go to CodeBuild. In CodeBuild, create a build project. Now in the build project, so let's name this as AWS ECR, AWS ECS Docker build. Okay, this is optional description, leave the description. Enable build badge, no, you don't need it. So add source, so where we gonna get the code repository from CodeCommit. There are a bunch of options available here. You can use GitHub, but Bitbucket is totally up to you. So CodeCommit repository. So we will select the AWS ECS Docker like so. This is our repository from CodeCommit, and then we will use the branch which is main, which is self-explanatory. You can use the latest commit, but I don't want to. I just want to leave it optional. And then if I scroll down, maybe expand the additional configuration. I don't think you need anything over here. And if I scroll down, let's go to environment. We want to use managed image, which is Amazon Linux 2, and we want to use a runtime standard, and we want to use the image, whatever you have, the latest one here. So just select the latest one. Always use the latest image from for this runtime version, and environment is Linux. And then privileged mode, so make sure you enable this privileged mode, enable this flag if you want to build the Docker images. Okay, so make sure you select this checkbox, otherwise you will not be able to run your Docker images. Okay, so make sure you select that, which will build the Docker images and get that privilege. And service role, I already created a service role which is CodeBuild service role. I have so I will walk you through this role in a moment. And then I love CodeBuild to modify the service role. I don't want to enable this, just uncheck it, and then use the build spec file. So basically, so AWS looks for code build to work. AWS looks for a file buildspec.yaml in the source code root directory. Okay, so in our root directory in CodeCommit we have already, so let's go to CodeCommit. So in the CodeCommit, in our repository. So we have created this buildspec.yaml file. So basically CodeBuild will look for that file which is named with buildspec.yaml file in the root directory, so that it will be used to run the build in your code. Okay, so by default it looks for this file. If you want to rename that file, you can rename it, but you should be able to add it here, otherwise it's going to be it's going to fail. Okay, so make sure you have this file in your root repository, in the CodeCommit repository. Okay, so use that build file. So I'm not going to give any name over here because you don't need to do it, as we discussed. And if you scroll down, artifacts or nothing, maybe you can leave it. You can use S3 when you want, but for now I'm not going to use S3. So CloudWatch, here you can name it as AWS ECS Docker logs. All right, so now create the build project. So awesome. So now that you have created the build project, so what we're gonna do, so we will be starting the build. Okay, there is a start build button over here. Click on the start build. So it's gonna take some time to complete this build, so let's wait for it, and then let's head back to the demo.
A few moments later.
All right, so now that the build is done, so as you can see, scroll down a bit, so you can see in the build logs, the Docker has already built the image, as you can see. Okay, and then it has also pushed the code into ECR. Okay, so let's go and confirm into the ECR if the latest build is being pushed or not. Okay, so let me open up that in this other tab. So type ECR. So there you go, you already have the ECR here. So now click on the repository. So see, look at that, the hash commit. So this is the latest tag that has been created dynamically. Okay, so we will test if the latest tag has been deployed or not in the in some time later. Okay, so now that it's already pushed the latest image tag to this one, so you can see the timestamp which is created. Okay, so now that we are ready with ECR, so we have pushed our image into ECR, we have used the CodeCommit, we have created our CodeBuild is also running successfully, so the build is succeeded. And then what we're going to do now is we will be creating our infrastructure using the CloudFormation template. Okay, so now go to the AWS snippets ECI CLI. So you can go to this repository and just make sure you are in this directory, which is ECS CLI. So let's go to core infrastructure and copy this command over here. So let's create our VPC and stuff like that, and our subnets and internet gateway. Just copy that URL and go to AWS snippets in the terminal. So I'm in the terminal and go to AWS snippets. So I'm already inside this ECS CLI directory, so I'm going to simply copy paste the command over here. AWS CloudFormation create stack. So we are creating a stack which is ECS core infrastructure, which is nothing but our VPC and core infrastructure setup. So let's see if we have this already. Core infrastructure setup. So I think it is ECS EC2 with CloudFormation YAML file. All right, so let's make sure that we have this file over here. So I think there is something wrong over in my template. So let me go to the file CloudFormation, or maybe I need to go back one step and list out CD core infrastructure ls. We have this. All right, so this is perfect. Okay, now let's go ahead and create our stack. So hit enter. So there you go, you have got your stack ID back. So if you go back to your, so let's open up CloudFormation in the new tab. You should be able to see our stack is being created. So the creation in progress, you can see the resources that we are trying to create, which is VPC, internet gateway, and a couple of subnets. And once this stack is ready, we will be launching our ECS with EC2 type. Okay, so let's go to cd dot and now ls we are in. Okay, let's go to CloudFormation ls we have EC2 ECS EC2. So let's go to our snippets and ECS CLI, and now go to CloudFormation and copy this command, which will create our ECS Elastic Container Service of type EC2. Okay, just copy this command. So this is very straightforward way to create our ECS with EC2. Okay. So all that we are doing is running our CloudFormation template. We are creating a stack with the name of ECS type EC2. For forget, it could be something like, you can name this something like forget, but for now we are looking into EC2, so I'm going to stick with EC2 for this CloudFormation template, and this is our template body, which is ECS EC2 with CloudFormation. Okay, so we'll run this command in a moment. So let's wait for this to complete first. So go to CloudFormation. Yes, I think the infrastructure has been created. Refresh. So you can see all of resource has been created, subnets and all that stuff. Okay, so now let's go to the terminal, and as you have already pasted this command, hit enter. So it has created our stack ID. So that means if you refresh here, so you can see our ECS type EC2 is being created. And if you go to ECS Elastic Container Service, you should now be able to see our cluster is running. Okay, so this is our cluster, and you can see there's nothing over here in services. Tasks, we will create a service shortly using our ECR image. Okay, so in tasks you don't see anything. Infrastructure, you don't see anything in the infrastructure yet, because our container instance will start running in some time. So wait for it. Just refresh a couple of times. We should wait for our CloudFormation to finish. So go back to CloudFormation here, click on CloudFormation. So click on our cluster. You can see in the resources, the creation is still in progress. So it will create our ECS cluster in some time. Okay, let's head back to the ECS. Click on that and go to infrastructure. Let's wait for our container instance to spin up. Okay, let's refresh that again. Okay, still not created the container instance, so just wait for a second. While we can discuss about the IAM role that we have created. For example, let's go to IAM and roles, and now let's go to CodeBuild service role. So basically, make sure you create this role, and we will be assigning this role to our CodeBuild, as you saw earlier. So what we are doing here is basically, in the CodeBuild role, I have created something called attach this permission, which is Amazon EC2 container registry power user. So it should be able to, you should be able to have this policy for your role. Okay, and then create a policy which is called CodeBuild service role policy, and I will copy paste this JSON that you have. So you will need to just copy the JSON and put it in your put it in this role. Okay, and expand this, and you can see you have the code build, start, stop, retry, build, and we are just attaching these permissions for our code build in order to run the build, push the build, push the latest image, docker image into the ECR. Okay, so all that we are doing here is we are giving that permissions to our code build on behalf of us, to make sure to create the permissions, to create the build and push that to the ECR. Okay, so that's all it is doing. So basically, make sure that you have this code build service role and attach these roles. Okay, and click on the edit, and you should be able to go to the edit policy and click on JSON. So you have all this JSON, so you just need to copy paste. I'm going to attach it to the lecture. Okay, cancel that, and that's the only role that we are creating for this demo. Okay, so I'll make sure I'll add that to the description box below. Please make sure you like, subscribe to my channel. Please make sure you comment down if you need any other answers. So now that our ECS EC2 type EC2 is created, so if you go back to the ECS, right, so refresh, and you should be able to see our container instance, which is now running. Okay, so which is in the availability zone US East 1A, and the memory is something like 1 gig. Okay, all right, so now that you have created this, so let's go ahead and create a task definition file. So this is our task definition file, which is exp. So let's see, there are a bunch of things I've already created, which is CodePipeline. For example, this is my latest one. So I'm going to start a new one, basically, to show you from the beginning. So create a new task definition, and name this as exp AWS ECS Docker. Okay, and name this as something like, so make sure your container instance name is something like our, for example, let's go to CodeCommit, go to Buildspec. So we already given the name something like XP CodePipeline. So copy this name, okay, and make sure you put it in the container name. So make sure this name is exactly same as this one, okay. And now we have used exp code pipeline, and the repository URL is something we're going to be using our Docker ECR. So click on copy the URL. Okay, this is our latest URI. You can specifically mention the commit, or you can simply copy paste the image URI and remove this commit hash in the end. Okay, that's it. Make sure you have this image URI correctly set up. So our Docker is actually running on port 3000. Okay, make sure you enter the port 3000. This is the container port. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom and click on next, make sure you select the EC2 instance. Not forget, you make sure you select the EC2 instance and Linux. And let's say the CPU is going to be 1 vCPU and 1 memory, 1 GB. For task role, make sure you ECS task execution role. And container size, you can ignore that. Storage, just ignore that. You don't need to do any monitoring, and that's it. So this is our task definition file. All right, and review this, and there you go. And now go ahead and click on create. So now that you have created your task definition file, okay, now what we're going to do is we will be going to our cluster. Click on the cluster, click on services. You're already on services. Now go ahead and click on create. Okay, so now the launch type is going to be EC2. And now if you scroll down a bit, and service, and this is going to be our ECS AWS ECS Docker. So this is the one and the latest one. All right, and service name is going to be something like pipeline. And scroll down, desired task, I want to only run one task. Deployment options, so I think you can ignore that. Service connect, ignore that. Load balancing, we are not doing any load balancing. Auto scaling, task placement, it's okay. And I think that's pretty much it. Okay, now go ahead and create the service. So now that it creates a service, okay, so it's going to take a while. Just refresh it a couple of times. So you can see our service is now active, but it is trying to deploy a task which is over here, and it takes a couple of minutes. Okay, so our task is running, so that means our actually container is actually running in our infrastructure, which is our container instance. So click on task, click on this link, and click on, so if you pull this up, this panel, and you can go to network bindings and click on the open address. If it is still not running, maybe it could be the issue with the security group. So open up this tab, paste it. So you don't see anything right now, which is on port 32768. So what I'm going to do is go to the instance security group, which is this one, and click on, go to the instance and click on instance. So in here, go to security, click on security groups. So there is no inbound rule, so that is the reason why your URL is not working. So you're going to go to edit inbound rules, add a rule, click on this all TCP, and click on anywhere IPv4 and click on save rules. So that's it. You are now ready with your security group. And if you go ahead and in this tab, if you hit refresh, so there you go, you are now welcome to the Express app. So your Express app is actually working. Okay, and then you also have this endpoint, something called /info, and there you go. So you're now done with the setting up your app inside the Docker container. So what we're going to do is, our app is running, our service is running. So just close these tabs and go to ECS, go to your my cluster. Okay, so your service is running, make sure your service is running, and your task is running. So what we're going to do is we will be creating our code pipeline. Okay, so to make sure we orchestrate code commit, code build, and then code deploy. Okay, so let's deploy to this ECS container using, so that's what we are trying to do here, right? So what we are going to do here is we are going to orchestrate all these services inside the code pipeline. So let's create the code pipeline. We have already created code commit, we have already created code build, we have already created ECR, and now we are going to do the deployment to the ECS. Okay, so go to code commit here and go to the code pipeline. So as you can see here in the code commit pipeline, so if you can directly type pipeline here, so it will take you to the code pipeline right here. Okay, and now there is no pipeline setup yet. So what we're going to do is going to create pipeline, name the pipeline something like AWS ECS Docker pipeline, new service role, or maybe the existing service role, which I already have something like, or maybe just create a new service role. That's totally fine. An existing service role, which is used one pipeline. I think this is created previously, so I'm going to use one of it. Code pipeline service role, and click on next. Service provider is going to be CodeCommit. So this is our source. Okay, and we are going to give the repository name AWS ECS Docker, and click on the branch name. This is the main branch, and click on next. Build provider is going to be CodeBuild, because we have created our project code AWS ECS Docker build. And then single build is not batch build, it's a single build. You can add the environment if you want, but in my case I'm not going to add any environment variables. Deploy provider is going to be CodeDeploy, and we will be using application name. So let's see, go back one step, previous step, and click on next. And in here you can see this time it will be AWS Amazon ECS. It's not CodeDeploy, it's Amazon ECS. So click on Amazon ECS, and the cluster name is our cluster name, and click on service. This is our service, if you remember. And image definition files, if you go back to code commit repositories, here's AWS ECS Docker, click on build spec. So simply copy the file name from here, which is this one. Go to code pipeline, just paste this. Okay, so this is our image definitions JSON. Deploy timeout, you can ignore that for now. So we are going to use deploy into our cluster, which is my ECS env EC2, and this is my service name, and this is my image definition file. Click on next. So now you're ready to deploy to run the code pipeline, and click on create pipeline. Okay, so this will make sure that we are going to create a pipeline. So as you can see, now the pipeline has already started. So what we're going to do is we will make sure we will add a manual review step before we deploy it after the build. Okay, so once the build is successful, so we need a manual trigger to run this deploy. Okay, so how are we going to do it? Click on edit, and now add stage. Stage name is going to be manual approval. Add stage, and now add action group. It's going to be review. Action provider is going to be manual approval. SNS topic, so I've not created any SNS topics, so you can ignore that for now. URL for the optional. So click on done. So there you go, and now you have added a manual step. So as soon as the build is done, so you're going to wait for the manual approval. So once I give the manual approval, then you will be able to deploy it. Okay, so now click on save the changes. All right, so now the pipeline is here, the build is running currently, the pipeline already started this, it has already pulled the code commit from there, and now the build step is running. And once the build is done, so you're gonna wait at the manual approval step. So once you approve it, and then it's going to deploy it to the AWS ECS. Okay, so let's go to build. All right, and scroll down a bit and click on the details. So yeah, build is running, and it is now running, and yeah, build is done pretty much, and now it has to push the built image into the ECR. So let's wait for a second. Is the build succeed? Yeah, build succeeded. And now go to ECS build and go to pipeline. From here, pipelines, click on this. So as you can see, the build is done. Okay, the manual approval did not run yet. Okay, the build is successful, which is great. So what's wrong here? Why is that cancelled? Not sure why is that cancelled. I say succeeded. Oh, that's weird. Okay. Go to CodePipeline again. Click on that. Or maybe let's do something. Let's let's do something. So in our app, we have already created something called some message, something called, if you go to CodeCommit and go back one step, let's go to AWS ECR, ECS Docker and index.js file. So we have already seen some message like welcome to Express app, right? So we're gonna edit this file and we're gonna push this change to the welcome to Docker app. It's me, Murli, author name Murli. I'm gonna put my email ID, update in root API, and click on commit message. So basically what I've done is I have pushed my code and made a change over here. So now that I have pushed my change, the pipeline should automatically pick up. So if you go to pipeline, so click on pipelines and click on AWS ECS Docker. So the pipeline should automatically pick up with the latest commit. So let's see if it pick up. I just hit refresh. So wait for a second. So the pipeline should automatically kick in. So there you go. It already has taken my latest message, which is update message in the root API. So which is actually pulled in, and the build is running. So after the build, let's wait for the build, and then we will go through the rest of the process. If for some reason the build fails, so what you're going to do is you're going to go and retry the build. So basically it is failed because while executing docker build. So basically if you go back to the AWS ECS docker build, so let's start the build again, or maybe go to your code pipeline, go to the pipeline, retry this step. Okay, so let's retry the build. It's going to take some time, and click in view code build. It's going to start building it again. So this is in progress. So click on it, face details. So let's wait for some time. There you go, your build is now succeeded. Now go back to the pipeline again. Let's see how what's gonna say, and click on that pipeline, and let's see what it's gonna say. So the build is now successful over here, and if you come down, so see, now that it is asking for the manual approval, so you can see waiting for the approval. So click on review and say, let's say approved, and then approve. So you have already approved it, so that's why it is now going to the deploy phase. So now as you can see, the build deploy is started. So let's wait for some time, and it is going to deploy into the AWS ECS. So now click on this link. It opens a new tab. Go to the pipeline, our service. Okay, and now go to deployments. Okay, so the deployment is in progress. As you can see in the last deployments, the last deployment was at 12.6, and now it's going to be a new deployment. As you can see, it is still in progress, so it's gonna take some time and refresh a couple of times. After this deployment, you should be able to see the new change in our website, in our API, which is we have added something called in the code build. So let's wait for this pipeline first, and then we can go ahead and discuss about that. So please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Please make sure if you learn something here, please do subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. I would really appreciate your help. So there you go. You looks like you have got some. You ran into some error which is called insufficient CPU units. It's because basically you have not created a sufficient space for your application. Okay, so what I will do now is I have already created, so let me recreate this service because you have allocated a very less space. That is the reason why it is not able to do it. Okay, so let's go to services. Let's stop this service. Okay, delete the service. Let's delete the service. All right, so let's make sure, let's clean up everything because we wanted to make sure we don't want to get that error. So let's stop the selected task. So we have stopped our running container, which is great. Our infrastructure is still running. And let's go to task definition again and clear this out. Create a new task definition file, which is AWS ECS Docker pipeline 10. It's just a naming thing, so you can name whatever you like. So in my case, I'm going to give something like this. Remember, you have to give the container name something like this. Go to CodeCommit right here, repositories, AWS ECS Docker, and click on the Docker file. Oh, sorry, let's go ahead and click on buildspec.yaml file and copy the exp code pipeline over here. Copy that and go to ECS. Paste that container name, and repository URL is going to be our ECR image. Copy that and go to CodePipeline. Sorry, your new task definition. Paste it. Remove the hash in the end. It looks good, and the container port is going to be 3000, and that's pretty much it. So that is your task definition. Go ahead and create the task definition like that. Okay, and from the drop down, make sure you select the smallest one as possible. So in the app environment, remove the forget, select the EC2 instances instead. It's going to be Linux x86 84. Click on so select the forget, and from the drop down, make sure you select the lowest possible one, which is this one, and 0.25, or make sure that you select 0.25 vCPU, and here you select 0.5 GB, and then go ahead and remove this and make sure you select the EC2 instance. And now you have 0.25 vCPU and 0.5 GB, which is going to be enough for this demo. Yeah, and in the task role, let's select the ECS task execution role and close this. That's fine. Make sure you have this, otherwise you will run into that error. So make sure you have this. Okay, and for storage, we are not going any storage. We'll see how we can utilize EFS volumes for for your Docker volumes. So you can use EFS as your storage for a persistent storage. Okay, we can discuss that in a later video. So close this monitoring and click on next. So make sure you have this and click on next, and everything looks good. Go ahead and create it. Okay, so now that you have created your task definition file, close all these notifications, go to your cluster again, go to the services, and now let's create a service based off this task definition that we have just created. So this is EC2 and your service, and it's going to be paste your ECS Docker pipeline 10. So this is what I've just created, and select this one, and service name is going to be something like service, and replica desired task is only one, and that's pretty much it. Go ahead and create a service. So you're going to wait for some time again. Okay, so it's going to create our service and it's going to launch our task. So just wait for some time. Okay, the service is running and it has created one task. So refresh it and you're now able to look into your task. So click on the task, and if you go to network bindings again, click on open address. So there you go, it's me Murli. Okay, you were able to see that, right? Our task is also running. So what we will do now is go ahead, go to our code commit one more time. Okay, so this is our latest service. Go to your code pipelines, and in the pipeline, so in the build stage, you remember we have created our build, and using that build we will be deploying it to the ECS instance, right? So what we're going to do is click on edit on the top and go to your deploy pipeline edit stage. So we're going to edit this ECS build artifact my ECS env. This is your cluster name, and this is not your service name. Our service name has changed, so click remove this from here and choose the service. Okay, this is what we have created, the latest one. Okay, so the image definition file, and that's pretty much it. Just click on done, and also done, and click on save. Okay, so that is the change that we need to make in our pipeline. So once you're ready, all that you're gonna do is go ahead and go to your code commit one more time, repositories, ECS, AWS ECS Docker, click on index.js, click on edit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure it's a new pipeline, and here's my message, Murli. Okay, and other name is Murli, and the email address is going to be Murli Prashant. Comment message, update message on root API. Okay, click on commit changes. So once you're done with the changes, right, go to your pipeline, refresh the page. So you can see it has already taken my root API, so it will start the build. Yeah, it's just started the build. So once the build is done, and then it's going to ask for a manual approval. So after you approve, and then that's going to deploy to the ECS. So let's wait and see. Okay, looks like our build is succeeded. If you go back to the pipeline one more time, go to the pipeline, refresh the page. So you can see the build is now done, and it is now waiting for the manual approval. So review it, and let's make a comment, approved, and approve it. And now it's going to start the deployment in a minute. Okay, now it started the deployment. So let's go to the details one more time and click on deployments over here and refresh this couple of times. So you can see that it is in now progress. So let's wait for some time, and hopefully now it will start the deployment, and I hope it will deploy to our container. Okay, so let's see. Okay, looks like our deployment has succeeded. So if I go to the ECS, I can see the deployment is done. And now let's go to our application URL. So go to Amazon ECS, click on our services, and let's go to the services over here. Okay, and go to tasks. This is our task, and open up that. Now click on network bindings, open up in the new URL. So there you go, and now you can see the new message that we have edited in our code commit. So that's it, and you can now see our pipeline has succeeded and our app is now deployed. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to give a like, share, subscribe. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Please like the video if you like it, and let me go back to the code pipeline, and I hope you understand the whole pipeline process, right? And let's go to, I think our, if I refer back to our diagram, you can see our code commit is pushed our code to the code commit. Okay, and then from the code commit we have taken that source code commit into our code build. We build a docker image and we pushed it to ECR, and from ECR we have taken that image into our code deploy, and we have deployed to the ECS EC2 instance, correct? So that's the whole pipeline process. I think we have done the plan. I think please don't forget to follow me on GitHub, on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Now let's go to our infrastructure, and let's let's delete the all the resources that we have created. Okay, so let's go to CloudFormation, because this is where we have started. So go to CloudFormation, and make sure you remove all of this. After you are with your exercise, please remove these resources. Go ahead and click on delete, and delete the stack, and this is going to delete all the Docker pipeline stack right here. So refresh a couple of times, it's going to delete it, and also do with the rest of two resources. Okay, also select the ECS EC2, ECS type EC2, delete the stack, and it's now going to delete all the stack that you just created in your cluster, and also select the core infrastructure, and also delete your VPC and other stuff. Okay, just delete all of it, and there you go, it is now deleted. The ECS type EC2, click on stacks. So now the one that you have to delete is the core infrastructure. Delete it, delete stack. So it's now going to drop all the resources that we have created with VPC, public subnets, internet gateway, gateway attachment. Everything will be deleted. All right, and once it is deleted, so go back to your code pipeline. It's totally up to you if you want to keep it. I don't think it's gonna do any harm, but make sure you delete this pipeline as well in order to make sure you are not charged with any surprise bill. Okay, so just remove that pipeline, go to your build projects, select that, delete build project, delete. Once you delete it, go to source commit repositories, click on ACS, and you can delete this. Okay, so I'm not going to delete in my case. I think you can go ahead and delete it. Now go to your ECS, and there is no cluster, right? There's no cluster running. And also go to EC2, and there is no running instance. Okay, so you should not be built with anything. So this is already terminated when you have deleted the stack using the cloud formation. So that is all good, and I think I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to give a like, and please subscribe. Please, if you have questions, please do comment in the comment sections below, and share this video as well with your friends who is actually learning any DevOps. So also, anybody is preparing for AWS developer associate, or if anybody is preparing for AWS cloud DevOps engineer, this video will be helpful for you, and to understand this code pipeline stuff. Okay, and all right, so your stack is now deleted, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to give it a like and share. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.